All right, who remembers what we read last, what the story was about, without looking? Two brothers. That's okay. It was about Jacob and Esau. Two brothers in the womb, and the one was going to serve the other. So I won't do too much of a recap, but Jacob was deceiving his brother, and he stole his blessing. He took away his birthright. And after all that happened, Esau wanted to slay his brother. So Jacob's mom tells him to go to her uncle. And there he goes through lots of stuff as well that I shared last time I was up here. And we're going to start in chapter 32. And we're going to see Jacob start to get broken here. He's going to start to become a different man. So we're just going to start reading in chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. So this next verse, does somebody want to read that? Okay.
And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau, thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now.
So if you hear the way he's speaking is a little bit of a different tone, the way he's saying his words now. He's saying, unto my lord Esau and thy servant Jacob. So I think he's probably afraid to meet his brother because of last time. He was, his brother told him he was going to slay him, so he's probably very afraid. He says, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks and manservants, women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. So the messengers are supposed to tell his brother that. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee. So he's ready to meet him as well. And 400 men with him. I don't know if you've ever seen what 400 men would look like in a big group, but I can imagine that would be quite the sight if you think they're going to attack you anyways. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into two bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. So he's making plans here. And then verse 9, he kind of, I think this is his prayer. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which said unto me, Return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. So he's asking God for help here. Verse 11, Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidest, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered of the multitudes. So from this we can see that Jacob is very afraid to meet his brother. And he has 400 men with him, so he goes to God and he prays to him and he asks for help. Deliver me from this, which is not the Jacob we've seen a few chapters ago, as he was tricking his brother, he was deceiving him. And from there, he just kind of divides the people a little bit. I'm not going to read all that, but we're going to go down to verse 24 and start reading again. So in verse 24 it says, And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. So these verses here there's a lot in them. I'm sure your parents or others could get a lot more out of it, but what I read from it I will share with you. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, so he's wrestling with a man, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall no more be called Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. So Jacob gets a new name here. Not sure if it is true, but I think the name Jacob means the deceiver, I've read, but I'm not sure if that is true. But here he gets the name Israel, which means, I think he struggles with God because he fought with God that day. And he has prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. So after he's wrestling with God, this is when Jacob, I think he has to limp from here on out because his thigh was out of joint now. So if you can imagine, you're about to meet your brother who's hostile with 400 men, and now you have a limp, and you can't even probably run very well. So I think God broke him down completely to the point where he had to rely on God to get through this. He cannot do it on his own strength. We're going to continue reading. And Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the swine what shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh. So, we're going to, a little bit of reading today, but we're going to read again the next chapter, all the way up to 11. So this is when he's about to meet his brother. It's I really love this story because they're hostile with each other, and we're going to see reconciliation be brought here. And it's just amazing what God can do through two brothers. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. Can you guys imagine what that would look like? They probably have swords and shields, and they're all walking up to Jacob. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and the children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them. So here, before Jacob was making plans to kind of divide, so in case one gets slayed, then they can escape. But after he wrestled with God, you can see that he actually went before everybody. He took the front row. So he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So that's a whole different thing, different outcome of what you would have thought, right? And he lifted up his eyes and saw the woman and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau's wondering, why did you send me all these animals and all these gifts? He's like, what do you mean by this? And he said, so I can find grace in your sight. He was trying to bless his brother with something that he probably wanted to bless his brother for taking his blessing before. And Esau said, I have enough. Keep that for yourself. But Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Therefore take, I pray thee, my blessing that is to thee, because God has dealt graciously with me, and I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. So what can we see from this story here? Some lessons or some things that you can notice? Anybody?
Esau forgave Jacob.
Yep, Esau forgave Jacob, which is very good. There was also reconciliation between two brothers. Exactly, Esau ran to meet him, just as the story of the prodigal son. It's the same thing there. And I just think it's amazing because there can be you can probably have arguments with people in your life or whatever, but these two brothers were very angry and hostile with one another. And I just think it's beautiful how God can reconcile two people back to one another. And I think it's a picture that's one kind of reconciliation where the two parties, the two people, they agree with one another and they come into good terms again, but God reconciled the world back to himself through his son, and we had no part in that. We just have to accept it. So I think that's an amazing story here to remember that you can always be reconciled back to somebody that has hurt you or you've hurt them or anything like that. So I'm not going to read it, but in Genesis 35 it actually says that they met again when their father died. So they did meet one more time, what it says in the Bible. So I just think that's a beautiful story. Thanks for listening.